wholeheartedly and said, no, more like Black Widow than Captain America.
All right, fair enough.
Truth.
Chrissy, you're talking to no one.
Oh no, Chrissy, we can't hear you.
She's the meeting host, but the trade-off is that now she can't talk.
And we're recording.
You couldn't hear me. I'm talking.
You look like you were saying really good stuff, though.
I was saying great stuff. So I'm going to start over again. So good morning and welcome to the Starlight Sprint 6 and 7 review. Just as a reminder, Sprint 7 was actually our last sprint of the current work cycle for the Starlight team. So this will be the last sprint review demo for a while. We will be following up with stakeholders, though, over the next few weeks as part of the transition to get you all working with the system on your respective campuses. Also, wanted to apologize again to everyone for having to cancel the Sprint 6 demo at the last moment. As I mentioned in my email, we were having really serious CI/CD issues. If you're interested in the work that was done to resolve those, Tom did a nice recap of that in this morning's Lurk demo. And so once that recording is uploaded, if you're interested, I'd encourage you to go ahead and watch that, where he talks a lot more about what was done to actually fix it. But now I'm here to talk about Starlight. And so really the goal of Sprint 6 and 7 was to have the code at a place where all of you, the stakeholders, could begin working in your respective installations on your respective campuses. And so to get there, this really required some additional testing and some bug fixes. We did a lot of campus theme refinements, including the ability to have a theme that's set globally across the entire site. And also continuing to work on getting Shibboleth set up for UCSB. And so overall, this milestone was all about having an initial instance of the Spotlight platform production ready for both campuses. And I say production ready because I don't know if that's UCSD's intention to put it straight into production. I think your release plan may be different from UCSB, but from the UCSB side, we are hoping to get it into production as soon as possible. So just generally to touch on some of the accomplishments, and I will actually not just talk at you, I'll share some stuff too. But generally our accomplishments, we had a lot around theming. Alex did some really great work around the ability to apply a theme globally through the super admin dashboard. So I'll demo that in a minute. And this provided the ability to completely customize the header and footer for a theme. That was something that was restricted previously. Also, the ability to specify an environment variable when the application is deployed, which instructs the applications which themes to make available in the user interface. So if you remember back to our last demo, I was able to toggle back and forth between the UCSB and the UCSD themes in my interface. That option has now gone away for me. So now I only get the UCSB theme and then the standard Blacklight theme as options. And I believe UCSD has the reverse. Although if for some reason we wanted the UCSD theme, we would have the ability to pull that into the application. On the UCSB side, our UCSB theme was updated to use this new global theme solution. And when I show the theme work, you'll see that we've taken a hybrid approach to theming based on conversations with our outreach department. So the header and footer are the new branding guidelines from campus that were just rolled out. But the masthead on the homepage is using some of the patterns from the library website to sort of marry those two systems together. We also did a lot of work to resolve some of the padding and spacing and other text formatting issues that I think were the result of just having a much wider font for campus branding than what is standard in Blacklight. On the UCSD side, David also did some great work to update the theme to use the new global theme solution, and have also customized the header and footer to more closely align with UCSD campus branding, which is really great. We did also, in the past 2 sprints, take care of a lot of bug fixes and enhancements. There was a really bad bug that was discovered related to when you made an object private. It basically took down the rendering views of the entire exhibit, which was really bad. So there was some great work done to fix that. So now you can make an object private and not take down the site. It's also now properly supporting creating user accounts when people are being invited via the Starlight user interface. So an example of that is when you added a user as an administrator that had not yet logged in, that was creating an authentication bug within the system. And as I understand it, that was partially related to our use of shibboleth for authentication. So that has been resolved. We've also done some work to place the exhibits under a different route. So it's now under Starlight as opposed to under Spotlight. The Starlight Docker configuration was updated to be better prepared for future Kubernetes container-based deployments, including running the Docker image as a regular user instead of as a root user. And then there was also another theming bug that we found that was related to the bookmarks page. So even when you set that global theme, the bookmarks page wasn't being themed. And so that has now been resolved as well. On the UCSB shibboleth front, we'll be talking about shibboleth authentication this next upcoming Monday as part of a Surfliner team meeting to really debrief and plan for next steps. We continue to still not have a working shibboleth site on the UCSB side, although Alex has done some really heroic work in continuing to work with campus enterprise technology services to get that set up. But really, I think the fallout from that is that the team really does have some concerns about the feasibility of shibboleth as a multi-campus authentication solution for future products and as a cloud-native solution. And these are both going to be really critical next steps for our future products. So this, I think, has been a really good learning opportunity for the team. We walked into this really thinking that because UCSD had very successful experience with shibboleth on their campus, that it would be just as easy for us at UCSB. And what we're really learning is that each campus within the UC system has been left to sort of figure out this on their own, and it hasn't been as easy as we thought it would be. But we do, in preparation for our soon production deployment, we do actually have both staging and production servers at UCSB, which is really exciting. So as soon as that shibboleth issue has been resolved, we'll be able to deploy with that to our servers. We also, the other thing that happened during these sprints is some conversations with the core Spotlight team up at Stanford. And I think really the important thing here is that there was a recognition that there's a variety of governance issues at Stanford with respect to this larger community of Spotlight contributors. Without getting into a lot of the details, we had a very long back and forth conversation with them, which resulted in them not approving one of our pull requests related to the global theming. And so this means that we do now have our own fork of the Spotlight code, which was something we were trying to avoid as part of this project. We would prefer to contribute that work back up to the upstream community. But I have been talking with the Spotlight product owner at Stanford, and she and I have been working together, as I know I mentioned in our last stakeholder meeting, to sort of work on developing a community roadmap for Spotlight and sort of open up the communication channels among all Spotlight institutions. And we know from that survey that there are other institutions who have similar goals that we do with Spotlight, and possibly some other institutions, Matt and I just saw this yesterday, that may have actually implemented things that we have asked for, like the AV import. And so that was really exciting news. But we'll continue to keep everyone in the loop as this develops. So the good news is we did actually accomplish most of what we had set out to do during this initial work cycle. We do feel like the code is in a really good shape for an initial deployment at both campuses. There are some still outstanding issues. There's still errors when you try to export an exhibit. There's a controlled vocabulary upstream indexing bug that we've documented, and we'll make sure that workarounds for those are added to the end user documentation. Those are things that just aren't, because there's workarounds, it's not really a showstopper in terms of getting it out, but we know that the system is not quite perfect yet. We also know that when I show you the themes, there's probably going to be things that everyone picks out as, oh, I want to change this, or there's some additional work to be done. And so those revisions, the team is prepared at each campus to continue to work with their local stakeholders on those revisions. And likewise, as stakeholders begin working with the system, any bugs that come up, the team will be available to help resolve those that are major, even during this off cycle. Additionally, the UCSB team, like I mentioned, is going to be continuing to work on the Shibboleth implementation with Campus ETS. And we do also still have an SMTP email issue where our email server is just not sending emails as it's supposed to. It's something that we're still working through with library operations. So let me actually take a moment from talking and actually show you stuff. And then maybe to wrap up, we can sort of talk about what's next for Starlight. So let me share my screen. I'm going to start actually with the UCSD Spotlight page. So you can see this looks a bit different from the last time that we met, where the theming was actually in this masthead, where it says Blacklight right now. And the thing about the masthead is it is actually controlled through the user interface. So this can be swapped out for an image, and you can add your own custom text. And so instead of having the UCSD library branding there, that has now been moved into this header at the top, which persists across each exhibit. And likewise, the footer was updated, and this footer persists across all of the exhibits. Let me go ahead and click into one of these exhibits so you can see what that looks like. And one of the really nice things about the global theme work that was just done is that we are able to now have this theme extend to the site-wide homepage. I can just click over to, I don't know how much, oh, this one doesn't have, but this is actually a great example of where you can see that the top image has actually been changed for that exhibit, and you can see that the text here appears on it. So this is actually on each exhibit, this is controlled by the administrator on that particular exhibit and is able to be swapped out as well. It doesn't require any developer time. So let me switch over to the UCSB one. I actually can sign into this, so I will. But you'll see here up at the top, this, what we're calling the eyebrow header, is the new UCSB branding guidelines. As I think a lot of folks know at UCSB, so you can see here, that's that same. And likewise, the footer is now in line with the campus branding guidelines as well. And then this is what I was talking about. This image at the back mirrors, if I go to one of our pages, it's this same sort of image background. And so this was what the outreach department asked that we use for the Spotlight homepage. Then if we go into the individual sites, I can just sort of click around in there. So this is pulling in the campus branding as well. And as I understand it, both of these sites, both the libs Starlight staging.ucsd.edu and then also the spotlight.library.ucsb.edu. These are available for folks to actually come and play around with. So if you wanted to click around and take a closer look at some of the theming work, you are welcome to do so, and that's available. Just be aware that this particular site at UCSB will be wiped at some point once we get the new deployment, because this is using our production URL, and so we'll be having a new staging site as well as a new empty production site for all of you to work with. So let me just sign in really quickly so I can demo the change to the branding work. So now I've signed in, I'm a super admin. So you can see here under the customize appearance, this did not used to be here where it says the selected theme is applied site-wide. It does not override exhibit specific theme selections. This was the piece that didn't used to exist. Any theming for the homepage had to be hard-coded into the system. And so now you can see I can just switch back and forth between the standard blacklight theme, and then go right back to the UCSD theme. And so this is how it works on the UCSD side as well. And you can see if I go into one of these exhibits, I can do the same thing, turn off the UCSB theme. But if I go back to the home page, that theme persists there, which is really great. And the nice thing about this is, you know, if you do have an exhibit where you want it to have even more extensive branding, this will support that as well, if you want exhibit-specific branding for some reason. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen unless anyone has something that they want me to click around on. And just as sort of a wrap-up, talk really briefly about what's next for Starlight. And also invite Matt to chime in with anything that I missed on the technical side.
I think you covered everything.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And so what's next for Starlight is Jessica and myself will be working with our respective campuses to get everybody access to your local installations, whether that's staging or production. Matt and I actually have a post milestone 1 wrap-up sprint that will start not next week because we'll both be at a conference next week, but the week after, where we're going to spend some time making sure that all the documentation related to outstanding work is in good shape. I'll also be following up with stakeholders from both campuses directly regarding training, developing end user documentation, and then also gathering and prioritizing the additional requirements for our next work cycle, especially now that there is this really good community documentation. So I'm hoping to schedule a couple of follow-up sessions with all of you to get your take on where you would like to see the team put their efforts during the next development sprint. And again, just as a reminder, when you begin working with the site, please feel free to either reach out to me or Jessica with any bugs you come out, or just add bug tickets to GitLab directly. Also feel free to add any new ideas you have for the site to the AHA Ideas portal, which I'll make sure those links are in the post about this on the blog. Team members at both campuses will be monitoring the GitLab issues, and will definitely make themselves available to respond to urgent requests. Theming requests, I think, will probably be handled by individual campus teams, but please do. We'll go ahead and still be using the GitLab to track those tickets. So I know that was just like a whole lot of time of me talking at all of you. So are there any questions about any of this? All right, so I am going to assume that there are not, since I'm not hearing any. But I do want to thank you all for joining us again today. I'm really excited to get you all into Starlight and actually working with the system and getting your feedback. It's really exciting that we now actually have something that we'll be able to turn over to all of you. So stay tuned. I probably will not be in touch next week, but the week after I'll be in touch with everyone about follow-up that you need. All right.